publication Moneycontrol on India's G20 presidency and how India is hoping to shape itself as the voice of the global South. But he also spoke about domestically resonant issues, particularly in the run-up to 2024. He said 10 years ago, when the country first elected him as Prime Minister in 2014, not many people knew him outside of Gujarat. And yet, the people of India gave him a huge mandate, the kind of which we hadn't seen in 30 years for a single-party government. Now, he says, in the 10 years that he's been in office in New Delhi, the country has got to know him. We've seen him through various achievements of the nation, whether it is right at the end of Chandrayaan, whether it is through the state visit to the United States back in June. So he says, and he's confident, that in 2024, because of what people have seen of his government and his governance over the last 10 years, they will give him a bigger mandate. So is Mr. Modi pitching the battle for 2024 as one between a stable, mazboot sarkar on the one side versus what he calls a khichdi coalition on the other?
I think it's a great sign that the world recognizes that the developing nations will be the engine of growth for the future.
Inflation in the numbers may be different for Prime Minister. Still, Prime Minister lives in Delhi only, therefore only he is unable to understand the pain of the rural India.
I think macros are improving and I fully in agreement with the statement that India was able to or has been able to manage the macros much better, particularly on the inflation front.
अब भारत में महंगाई रोकनी है तो आपको विदेशी देशों की मदद लेनी पड़ेगी. ये तो पहला नया फार्मूला हम नरेंद्र मोदी जी के जुबान से सुन रहे हैं.
We need not look at the G20 presidency as only a short-term influence on economic growth, but it is more likely to lead to a confluence of positivities for the Indian economy that might actually provide or propel the growth on the higher side and in a more sustainable sort of fashion.
बड़े-बड़े देश US हो या UK हो या यूरोप हो या चाइना हो, कैसे वो असफल रहे अपने इकोनॉमी को मैनेज करने में, और या तो वो आज स्लो डाउन कर रहे हैं ग्रोथ में या हाई इन्फ्लेशन के दौर से गुजर रहे हैं.
Inflation had come down to 9 years. He says that we are taking steps to bring down inflation. 9 years what they were doing.
There are a lot of economic payoffs and benefits in terms of access to markets, in terms of the ease of doing business in other countries.
India is showing leadership on, for example, if you see some of the changes coming through on the global regulation of crypto assets, on how and at least trying to build a consensus around the issue of climate financing. So these are long-term issues.
All right, so in that exclusive interview to Moneycontrol, this was the big message by the Prime Minister on the road to 2024. He said, in 2014, no one knew me, but I still got a huge mandate. He goes on to say that in 10 years, people have seen a little bit of me everywhere. He specifically referred to the Chandrayaan mission. He talked about the recent state visit to the United States. People know me well after the US visit and the success of the Chandrayaan mission. He also went on to say that this massive growth that the country has seen under his prime ministership has been because of political stability, because of having a strong sarkar at the center. He also has said that people have placed unprecedented trust in him and his government. In the last 9 years, the economy, education, infrastructure have all seen major reforms, from banking reforms to economic reforms, indirect taxes in the form of GST. He also says that the idea of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, which has been followed domestically, now can be included in India's foreign policy as well. He also went on to add that he has no doubt that in 2024 as well, the people of India will choose wisely. So the Prime Minister sort of laying down the terms, positing the narrative, if you will, of how 2024 is going to be shaped. On the one hand, this strong, mazboot sarkar, which has seen economic reforms, which has pushed through very, very difficult challenges, whether it is Jan Dhan accounts, whether it is toilets under Swachh Bharat, and of course, the digital public infrastructure that's been built, including now the physical infrastructure in the form of national highways. And two, on the other side, what he's calling a rebranded UPA, a coming together of 20-odd parties who maybe on paper are strong, arithmetically, no doubt about it, but the only reason they are coming together is to oust Narendra Modi from power and the BJP from power. Let me now bring in our guests. Sanju Verma is national spokesperson of the BJP. Meeta Chakrabarti is spokesperson of the Congress Party. Krishna Hegde is spokesperson of the Shiv Sena, of the Shinde faction, and Riju Datta, spokesperson of the TMC, joining us. Sanju Verma, again, in the interview to Money Control, the Prime Minister sort of laid out the achievements of his government domestically and why he believes on the basis of that, his government will get a third term. He also, and this is the subtext, is firmly of the belief that the age and era of coalition politics is over in this country. The country has seen a strong, mazboot sarkar over the last 9 years, and the mood for continuance of that mazboot, strong sarkar is more than a sort of hankering back to the 90s or the early 2000s when we had coalition governments.
You know, Zaka, first and foremost, congratulations to your group and to moneycontrol.com, specifically speaking, for that outstanding interview. You know, one thing which is very common to all the speeches and utterances by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the public domain are the fact that he keeps reinforcing the concept of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas and Sabka Prayas. And for everybody out there in the opposition who's quick to dismiss this as just another jumla, you have a lot to learn, because you were dismissive of the Prime Minister in 2014 saying, "Arey, ye to tukkebazi hai." Maybe he just won, but you know, this is a one-off victory. It will not be repeated in 2019. And guess what? In 2019, the BJP-led NDA came back with an even stronger mandate, and how. And come 2024, it is going to be an encore. It's going to be a repeat. We'll come back with a bigger mandate because we have a track record of the last 9 years which speaks volumes about the fact that the Prime Minister has walked the talk when it comes to A, physical infrastructure, B, digital infrastructure, C, physical inclusion, D, political stability, E, financial stability, F, structural reforms, G, being, you know, the leader of the global south in more ways than one. And I can just go on and on and on. The list is endless.
Okay.
But I think the most important point is this. There has been a narrative, Zaka, in the last couple of years that Narendra Modi has been successful only because of the Tina factor. There is no other alternative to Modi. Is it true? Perhaps partially so. But I think, as they say in Hindi, ye public hai, ye sab janti hai. You know, you can fool some people all the time. You cannot fool all the people all the time. And my simple submission before I end, you know, what I think is a bit of a verbal speech is this, that be Jan Dhan Yojana, where 67% of the beneficiaries are from rural and semi-urban areas, with 56% of the beneficiaries being women, be it the 11 crore plus toilets making Swachh Bharat the biggest sanitation scheme globally, be it Mudra Yojana, where 8 crore people have taken loan for the first time ever and are today self-employed, and Mudra Yojana has converted a whole lot of people from job seekers to job creators. The limited point is this: Prime Minister Narendra Modi has not unleashed incremental reforms because of political stability, because of the thumping majority, because he knows that in 2019, if it was 23 crore voters which voted for the NDA, even at a 50 or 16% growth, we will get a 27 or 28 crore vote base, which is naturally ours.
So let me ask Meeta Chakrabarti of the Congress, what the subtext of what the Prime Minister has told Money Control is, people have seen me and people have seen the development that my government has ushered in over the last 9 years, whether it is physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, all these structural reforms, the banking reforms, etc. And no one in India wants to go back or hanker back to the days of coalition politics. They have tasted the strong, decisive, mazboot sarkar. No one wants to go back to the 1990s as India's polity unfolded at that time. How will you respond to that, ma'am?
Okay, good evening to all the fellow panelists and good evening to all your viewers. Firstly, of course, the people have seen what has happened in the past 9 years. People have seen also the economic GDP growth rate during UPA 1 and UPA 2. One of the reasons why UPA 2 was given the mandate that it was given was because of the economic performance of UPA 1 government under Dr. Manmohan Singh. People have seen the economic liberalization that has taken place in the 1990s as well. People are also experiencing high inflation rate. I think in the across the last year, it's about 7.4%. And the high unemployment rate remains a concern, which is about 7.93%. Now, having said that, the India Alliance or the Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance has been formed, which represents close to 60% of people's mandate, even if you go by the 2019 election results. And yes, of course, then all these parties, all these constituent 28 political parties were not fighting it together, have been formed to give a realistic alternative to the people of India. We are not here only to oppose one Mr. Narendra Modi. Yes, Mr. Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of the country, is the tallest leader of the BJP. So yes, he would be there definitely on the target. But however, we are here to give an alternative socio-economic vision to the people of India. We are here to talk about as how we are going to strengthen the SME sectors, how we are going to create more jobs, how we are going to bring down the inflation, how we are going to bring down the unemployment rate. We have an alternative vision, and the way we are approaching it, be it the formation of the media team, be it the formation of the campaign team, social media team, the research team that is supposed to come up with a common minimum program or a common manifesto, our entire approach is based on our alternative vision that we are going to place to the people of India. And of course, the people of India need to make their choice.
Yeah, of course. Let them decide which of these two visions they want to vote for. But Riju Datta, one of the biggest points of attack against this government from the opposition has been on inflation. And the Prime Minister spoke about it in the interview to Money Control, where he said during COVID, the temptation, and many countries fell for this, was to print more money. Because they printed more money, they are now dealing with unsustainable levels of debt, they are dealing with record inflation, and that because India did not do that, did not fall into that temptation, and because all the monies that were available were put into COVID management, today he says inflation is much more manageable. Had India done what European countries did or what the United States did, this inflation would have perhaps been in double digits.
Zaka, we have a multifaceted Prime Minister, so I guess he is now, he has got a substantial knowledge of economics as well, so all good to him. But the topic of discussion today is the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, and my counterpart Sanju ji has said he has walked the talk. Now for your viewers, I will mention 5 points where he has walked the talk, where he has promised to the people of India. I will bring back black money. I will make sure bullet trains run in this country. I will double farmers' income. I will make sure every person in this country have pakka houses by 2022. And last but not the least, what did he say? He said that I will make sure that we have a women's reservation bill. Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao is my biggest target. So how he has walked the talk is in front for the viewers and the people of India to decide. Now coming to the main issues. Politics is of perception and optics, but the main issues that trouble the voters that are going to decide whether Prime Minister Modi will come back again or whether he will leave his chair are the skyrocketing prices of medicine, of vegetables, of daily usage, things that we need for daily usage, rampant corruption that is there in the market, inflation, communal tension, border disputes. People are fighting over everything. A Prime Minister who attends the first day and the last of the Parliament. Can I finish, please, Zaka?
One second.
Can I finish, please?
No, I just want to.
Finish, please?
Yeah. Just hear me out. The Prime Minister in that interview is saying that had we printed money during COVID, this would have been far worse. And you can look at, the examples of countries around the world, including in the United States, where the Federal Reserve, the central bank there, has raised rates multiple times with the singular objective of trying to bring down inflation.
No, see, if I go into this, world tour now, then I have to compare United States and India on multiple issues. I don't want to go down that line. I will be vehemently critic of my Prime Minister, because we are voters of India and we will vote for our Prime Minister. The country has reached the moon. The Prime Minister has gone to Jakarta today. Even today, is Manipur not a part of this country?
Zaka.
Manipur is still burning, Zaka, you know it, and the Prime Minister couldn't even find time to go there. So to end my opening statement and to quote my dearest colleague Sanju ji, ये public है, ये सब जानती है, you cannot fool all the people all the time.
Okay, so Sanju Verma, please respond. I think he's used your words against you, but more importantly, what about the promises made in 2014? Many of them have not been fulfilled, and it's the contention of the opposition that the Prime Minister is conveniently forgetting about those promises.
Okay. There's a kahavat in English, imitation is the best form of flattery. Riju is a scholar, so I don't want to get into that debate, but I just have a few quick points to make. Every time people come on a television debate, and I've been doing a zillion debates on inflation, I say, be specific, let's talk numbers. Don't make this generic argument, mehengai badh gayi hai. I will now give you some data, and please listen to it very carefully. It won't take more than 20 seconds and this entire inflation bogey will be debunked. April 2023, when the new financial year started, retail inflation 4.68%, May 4.21%, June 4.87%. Yes, in July it went up to 7.4%. Wholesale inflation April minus 0.92%, May minus 3.48%, June minus 4.12%, July minus 1.36%. My limited point is this. In July, everybody knows inflation went up because of the rise in vegetable prices thanks to flooding in large parts of Karnataka, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and inclement weather in large parts of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar too. And I want to now give you one very interesting data. This is the World Bank data. And please listen to this carefully. This is not data by Sanju Verma. Inflation under the UPA 2, 5 years of UPA 2. Listen to this. 10.9%, 12%, 8.9%, 9.48%, and then 10%. Now, last 5 years under Modi government, World Bank figures 3.73%, 6.62%, 5.13%, 6.7%, 5.1%. The average inflation of UPA 2 was 10.25%. That of the Narendra Modi government in last 5 years, 5.45%.
Okay.
Half of what it was under.
Let me also bring in Krishna Hegde of the Shiv Sena Shinde faction. Krishna Hegde. While yes, India may be better off growth-wise, India may be better off certainly also on the inflation front compared to some of the other countries around the world, and many of them more developed countries, more developed economies than India. But the fact of the matter is, the India Alliance parties are saying, just look at what has happened in the last 1 week since their Mumbai meeting. There are stories that India's name is going to be changed to Bharat. There are stories about special assembly session is being called. Then there is this whole story about one nation, one poll. There's a committee that's been formed under the former president, Mr. Kovind. All of this is happening because the opposition is saying that the Prime Minister and the BJP are rattled because of this India alliance. इसकी वजह से वो देश के नाम भी बदलने के लिए तैयार है.
Zaka, I must tell you, who's cooking up these stories? It's the opposition leaders who are cooking the stories because they don't have much to do. Secondly, in 2014, the slogan across the country was "Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar." In 2024, it is still there as "Modi hai to mumkin hai." And why Modi hai to mumkin hai? Because Modi means Ram Mandir, Modi means Article 370, Modi means rights for Muslim women, Modi means Chandrayaan 3, Modi means 160 welfare schemes, Modi means subsidy and benefits straight to the accounts of the common man without any middleman. Modi means G20 presidency, Modi means uniform civil code, Modi means a new parliament building, and Modi means education and health facilities for the country. So what I'm trying to say,
Krishnaji, one second. You're right. I'm not contesting any
These
of
guys
the
are
things that you've listed. I'm not contesting. But Opposition Alliance is asking what happened to 2 crore jobs, what happened to 15 lakhs in bank account, what happened to bringing Lalit Modi and Vijay Mallya back. You know, these are promises that were made in 2014. Why are you conveniently forgetting that?
no, why did the opposition, that is the UPA, get thrown out in 2014? It was because of Commonwealth, 2G, 3G, Koila, helicopter. You name the scams, and there they had it, and they never came back after that. Earlier in 2014 they were UPA 1, then in 2019 they became UPA 2, and now they've come back with a new name called India Alliance, or maybe the End Alliance. We don't know. Even after they had the first meeting, the AAP and the Congress fought over ordinance. After the second meeting, the AAP and the Congress fought over who will fight the Member of Parliament seats in Delhi. And after the third meeting, instead of announcing a Prime Minister candidate name, or at least a single convener name, Zaka, you are aware, they've announced 74 coordinators. That the secretaries of all the parties could have done it. There's no rocket science to announce 74 coordinators. And now they're going to have another meeting, I think, in September 20th. Are they fighting for 2024 or are they fighting for 2029?
Okay.
Big question.
So, Meeta Chakrabarti, I mean, cohesion. One second. Let me ask Meeta Chakrabarti. You know, when the voter is looking for an alternative, he or she is looking for a cohesive message that this is what the parties stand for. This is the messaging must be simple and cohesive. There should be a visible leader. Today, whether you like it or not, increasingly elections are fought in a very presidential manner. There needs to be a face. There needs to be a visible face. You can't have 28 faces. That's the point that the BJP is making, Meeta Chakrabarti. How are you going to resolve that? You've had 3 meetings so far. You've not addressed this elephant in the room.
Okay, before addressing this, can I ask my colleague from the Shiv Sena fraction, the gentleman representing here, as that he seems to be singing a lot of praise for Prime Minister Modi. Does he agree with what Prime Minister Modi said in Madhya Pradesh when he called Mr. Ajit Pawar a completely corrupt person? And only a couple of days after that speech, Mr. Ajit Pawar actually went ahead and joined the alliance
Meeta, please get your facts very clear.
Maharashtra.
He has not called Ajit Pawar a corrupt person. No, he has not called. Please look at the facts.
He was talking about the scam in Maharashtra. There was a scam that was being referred to. We all know. I mean, people are not fooled. So stop misleading people. You spoke about 70 coordinators.
Get your facts clear.
He was referring to
okay, let's move on to the next issue. Let's move on to the next issue.
Okay,
Meeta
so
Chakrabarti.
I mean, you have to stop fooling the people of India. I mean, people are watching and they obviously know.
Please do not.
Okay. Let's move on to the next point.
Moving on. Having made this point, moving on. The gentleman spoke about 70 coordinators. Those are subcommittees. So let us keep the facts straight. There are subcommittees that have been formed for media and campaign management, for digital media.
Give me the name of your convener.
So we have 11 persons in the coordination team. Why are you so rattled? I mean, my only limited query is
13 people in the social media team.
So
13 people in the research team.
Why are you concerned
there will be different teams and different members. One second. Let's be. Meeta, everybody agrees with you. One second, Krishnaji, one at a time. Otherwise, we won't be able to understand. You know, the limited point is, I don't think anybody should have a quibble with the India Alliance for having separate teams and different members in those teams. Today, elections are a multi-dimensional fight. That's not the issue. Meeta Chakrabarti, the issue is, ultimately, when people vote, they are voting for a face. They are voting for a person.
I have only one leader.
That needs to be clarified on. Yes, Meeta
Okay.
Chakrabarti.
We have only
So,
one leader.
so I do not
that is
like to
Narendra
be
Modi.
interrupted while I'm speaking.
Yeah.
If the gentleman is
Yeah,
done,
please,
then if
please.
you can give me some uninterrupted time, please, sir. I extended that courtesy to you.
Please, please.
Okay,
please
so
go on.
coming back to my
Please go
limited
on.
point, as I said, we are not here only to oppose one Mr. Modi or one Mr. Modi led Modi government. We are here to give an alternative socio-economic view. So we have an economic view vision, we have a socio-political vision where we do not want any segment or any strata of the society to feel targeted or to be felt left out from the mainstream of economic development or the social progression of the nation. That is our vision, and that is the vision that we are bringing to the table. Hence, so many subcommittees have been formed. Hence, this communication, hence this coordination team has been formed with 11 members, not 70 members.
Okay.
And yes, we have representation from all our constituent parties. We have a large number of chief ministers and former chief ministers in the India Alliance. They bring along with them tremendous experience of governance, of politics, of understanding of India's reality. So we are bringing together a very experienced team, very capable leaders,
message,
who are very
Sanju
strong
Verma,
in their
that
regional
Congress,
pockets,
you heard from Meeta
and we have
Chakrabarti
formed
just
a
now.
formidable political
You've heard from
formation.
Riju
Hence the
Datta,
BJP so matters.
other leaders of the India Alliance, that there is a mahal in this country where large sections are either living in fear or they are not being included in the economic mainstream, the progress that all of this country is seeing. How do you respond to that narrative with data that, you keep saying Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, but the opposition cites every instance where a person of the minority faith is targeted and saying that this is what is alienating a large number of people?
Zaka, let's be very clear. I don't want any bhashan from the Congress on minority welfare, because each time they speak about Bilkis Bano, I will remind them about Shah Bano, who was denied a measly monthly alimony of only 179 rupees after she was thrown out along with her 5 children by her husband, who happened to be a lawyer. And Rajiv Gandhi, he overshot the Supreme Court verdict. He completely undermined the Supreme Court verdict and brought in the Muslim divorce bill. So we all know that Shah Bano stands as an epitome of what the Congress has done in the name of vote bank and appeasement-oriented politics. Point number 1. Point number 2, I always speak with data. I don't believe in giving these generic statements. Hum to ye kar denge, hum to wo kar denge. We have 28 faces, blah, blah, blah. Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, 31% of the entire amount disbursed to Muslims, not just allocated, mind you, disbursed. Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana, 33% of the entire corpus that has been given till now of 2,70,000 crore odd disbursed to Muslims. Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, the entire corpus till now that has been disbursed, 36% disbursed to Muslims. And last but not the least, Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, and you can check up the archives of the government. This is not data that I'm throwing off my hat. Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, 37% of the amount disbursed till date, disbursed to whom? To the Muslim community. So we don't need lessons on minority welfareism from the Congress, but please, just indulge me for 30 seconds. I will repeat what JP Nadda said. It is fine to sit in the Grand Hyatt and say, oh, we will take on Narendra Modi, but you know what? You don't have the organizational strength of the BJP or Chunav jeetne ke liye, especially when it is a presidential style general election come 2024, as Nadda ji said, opposition वालों के पास ना तो नीति है, ना तो नियत है, ना तो नेता है.
Okay.
कहीं की ईट कहीं का रोड़ा, भानुमति ने कुनबा जोड़ा. You have nothing apart from the one binding glue. That is your visceral hatred for Narendra Modi.
Riju Datta, no niti, no niyat, and most importantly, no neta.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, yes, I heard Sanju ji giving rave reviews to Nadda ji. Well, Nadda ji hails from Himachal. He could not even win Himachal. He is giving bhashan on the entire India. Good for them. Now, the second thing I will quote, Sanju ji, I have not. I cannot do this.
Okay. One minute. Riju, continue. Riju, continue. Yeah, Riju, continue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Secondly, when she is giving quotes, I will quote one of the tallest leader of BJP, that is Mr. Nitin Gadkari ji, who said गधे अभी घास खा रहे और घोड़े घास खा रहे और गधे च्यवनप्राश खा रहे, बाकी समझदारों के लिए इशारा काफी है. This is not my words, this is Nitin Gadkari ji's words. And now let me quote you facts and figures. CAG, India's chief auditor, has unearthed 7 scams. Bharatmala project, Dwarka Expressway, Ayushman Bharat, NHAI toll collection, Rural Development Ministry, HAL 150 crore scam, and most, the shameful of them all, Ayodhya Development Trust. Prabhu Ram se bhi ye log chura liya, and they talk about scams about other governments. And now, when Sanju ji loves numbers, I will just finish off by quoting her some numbers. A brief comparison. May 2014, May 2023. Oil barrel prices, May 2014, $105.71 US. Today it is $85.55 US. In 2014, crude oil price. In 2014, petrol was 71 rupees 41 paisa. Now it is 101.94. Diesel was 55.49. Now it is 87.98. So this is 14.2 kg LPG cylinder that is used in every household in this country. 2014 it was 410 rupees. In now it is 1103 rupees. After Rakhi gift, 903 rupees. Total exports in 2002, 2022, 2023 as per World Bank data that Sanju ji quoted, US dollars 770 billion. And total exports in 2013, 2014 as per World Bank, USD 651.22 billion. So India's growth in the last 10 years is only 18.26%.
Okay.
So don't fool people. Do not fool people.
Okay. No, ma'am, this whole fuel price. Yeah, I'm giving you time, but please also respond on this fuel price charge, because that's one thing that consistently opposition and people have also been saying. Why are we paying 100 rupees per litre of petrol?
Okay, I will now answer. And Riju Datta should hear, you know, Zakat is a famous kahavat. Aadhi adhura, jo aadha adhura gyan hota hai, little knowledge is dangerous. He quoted the data of 2013-14 exports, that was merchandise exports plus services exports, which was $600 billion. But in 2023, only merchandise exports is $770 billion. Point number one. Point number two, I'm a rated economist and I know a lot more than Riju Datta, with no offense to him. Yes, crude oil prices came down under the Modi government, but do you know what? India imports 86% of its crude oil requirements. Local fuel prices are determined by two things, and your audience needs to know this. I have written reams of paper on this. A, it is based on the Brent crude price internationally, and B, our local fuel prices are determined by the rupee dollar rate, which is measured by the dollar index called the DXY. Now, while the Modi government gained from the fall in global Brent crude oil prices, what happened between 2014 and 2023 was that the dollar index went up from 76 in 2013 to as high as 115 last year, which means that the dollar index in the last 8 to 9 years rose by a hefty 51%, eradicating almost all the gains of a fall in global Brent crude prices. And despite that, the Modi government reduced, just give me 10 seconds, Modi government reduced excise on petrol and diesel by 5 and 10 rupees in November 2021, by 8 and 6 rupees in May 2022. But I have a question to ask of Riju Datta. You come here and on national television, you talk about oil prices. When oil, as in basically the retail fuel price in Gujarat, in Assam, in Uttar Pradesh, was between 86 and 92. Do you know it was as high as 125 rupees in Ganganagar in Rajasthan, ruled by the Congress, and it was 117 rupees in almost every part of West Bengal, which means that fuel prices in non-BJP ruled states were almost 20 to 25% higher. Why? Because Mamata Banerjee refused to cut down value-added tax on petrol and diesel.
Okay, I got to wrap up. 10 seconds. Yes, 10 seconds, Riju Datta. I got to wrap up. Yeah.
10 seconds. Yes.
You did not reduce
first of all, it was never. I cannot talk about Rajasthan. I will talk about Bengal. In Bengal, it was never 117 rupees. Highest it went was
117.
And I am telling it on national television to Sanju Verma. I am telling it on national television to Sanju Verma. Please pass my challenge to Pradhan Mantri that Bengal the center owes Bengal 1,15,000 crores. Give us our due, which is our due. You are not doing charity, our due. You give us our due, we will slash petrol prices by 20 rupees.
Okay.
Give us
all
our
right.
due of
We have to leave it at
1,50,000
that. But I think I want to go back to where we started this, and that is the money control interview that the Prime Minister has given, where he is clearly, at least he is very clear about how the battle for 2024, the narrative of it will be set. And that is, you have the Modi government, a strong, mazboot, clear-headed Sarkar, taking on this disparate, coming together, a coalition of parties, which again and again I keep saying this, yes, arithmetically, on paper, they are very, very strong. They are formidable. More than 60% of the electorate did not vote for the BJP in 2019. They voted for the India parties. But then, that is on paper. And elections are not fought on paper, they are fought on the ground. So there is the big question of vote transfer as well. Transferability more than transfer. All right, let's move on to the other story. And this is again becoming yet another sort of pillar of campaign, of rhetoric, of the narrative, as it were, for the 2024 election. And that is this whole debate around Sanatan Dharma. It started with Udhyanidhi Stalin's comments where he said that Sanatan Dharma needs to be eradicated. Now, top Congress leaders from Karnataka, including the Chief Minister, also we had a former Deputy Chief Minister and a senior leader, Mr. Parameshwara, all stoking controversy around Hinduism and statements around Hinduism. The Chief Minister, for example, said the idea or this practice of asking men who enter certain Hindu temples to remove their shirt was denigrating, according to the Chief Minister. The former Deputy Chief Minister, Parameshwara, said the origins of religions like Islam, Christianity, even Buddhism and Jainism are known, but the origins of Hinduism are not known. Clearly, the BJP is up in arms. They are questioning why leaders in the opposition are insulting practitioners of the Hindu faith, the Hindu way of life. In fact, they are clearly pitching this as an example yet again, from Udhyanidhi Stalin to Siddaramaiah, of the anti-Hindu mindset of the Congress and its India alliance partners. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi has also weighed in on this debate. He had a Union Council of Ministers meeting this morning where he told the members of his Council of Ministers to clearly counter this narrative that's being put forth on Sanatan Dharma by the opposition, but do it in a contemporary fashion, not with historical facets, but with contemporary examples. So, who is stoking this political fire, and will this also turn out to be yet another defining narrative-setting issue for 2024?
ಹಿಂದೂ ಧರ್ಮ ಯಾವಾಗ ಹುಟ್ಟು ಯಾರು ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸಿದ್ರು ಹಿಂದೂ ಧರ್ಮ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆ ಕೂತಿದೆ ದೊಡ್ಡೆಲ್ಲ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್
ಈ ಆಚರಣೆ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಈ ಆಚರಣೆ ದೇವ್ರ ದೃಷ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಮಾನವೀಯವಾದಂತ ಆಚರಣೆ.
क्या भारत के संविधान में किसी भी पूजा पद्धति को नष्ट करने का अधिकार किसी ने दिया है?
कांग्रेस पार्टी से क्या आपके नेता अगर मिस्टर परमेश्वर ये कहते हैं और आपके अलायंस सहयोगी उदयनिधि ये कहते हैं कि हिंदू धर्म एक डिजीज है, तो मैं याद दिलाना चाहता हूं कि एटम बम के आविष्कारक रॉबर्ट ओपेनहाइमर को गीता में प्रेरणा नजर आती है.
All right, so can the anti-Hindu comments, as the BJP is putting it, of these various opposition leaders from Udhyanidhi Stalin to Siddaramaiah, will this be a narrative-setting issue for 2024? Prashant GS is spokesperson of the Karnataka BJP. Professor Chandan Gowda is a political analyst who is joining us. Professor Gowda, let me start with you first. The problem, and this is what the BJP is saying, these can't be seen as statements in isolation. It's not just one Udhyanidhi Stalin. It's also what the Karnataka Chief Minister said today about what he called a denigrating practice of removing shirt while entering certain Hindu temples. The former Deputy Chief Minister and the current Home Minister, he says the origins of Hinduism are not known. why should these not be construed as insults to practitioners of the Hindu faith and the people who believe in the Hindu faith?
It's very simple. What Parmeshwar has said is elementary knowledge, that Hinduism has no acknowledged founder, that its origins are not known, and everyone is comfortable with it. I don't see what is suddenly something unacceptable about something that everyone always knew. I mean, we don't have a Jesus-like founder or a Prophet Muhammad-like founder, nor do we have the Bible or Quran-like texts. And it's fine. It's not a problem because Hinduism is a very different sort of a religion. Secondly, if you listen to Siddaramaya's comment, he's not saying anything against Hinduism. He's saying temples can be discriminatory by asking the visitors to take off their shirt, which will then allow priests to tell who has a sacred thread and who doesn't, which then forms the basis of how they treat them. Now, is it anti-Hinduism or is he asking for equality within the temple? It's pretty clear it's the latter, Zaka. So I think we are conflating many things that are very different.
GS Prashant, respond. How is asking for shirts to be removed, how is that seen as and the Chief Minister sort of ranting against it, how is that being seen as anti-Hindu? And also what Professor Gowda is saying, that Mr. Parmeshwara simply said there was no one person on whom Hinduism was founded, whereas you can have that even for religions like Buddhism and Jainism. There is one founder of that religion, whereas not for Hinduism.
Zaka, firstly, this is a planned attack on Hindus and Hinduism by the Ghamandiya Gadbandhan. If you carefully observe the turn of events, this Ghamandiya Gadbandhan meets in Mumbai, and then Udhyanidhi Stalin reads out a scripted speech wherein he calls for eradication of Sanatan Dharma. Coming to Karnataka, one more dynast politician, Priyank Kharge, supports him. And now Parmeshwar makes a statement that Hinduism, the origin is not known. And you look at his complete statement, he talks about other religions having essence, which is good for all the people, mankind. What is he talking about? Is he talking about Hinduism not being good? And then Siddaramaiah is a known Hindu hater and a Hindu basher, because by his statement is very clear, he is now wanting to comment on the cultural and religious ethos of the Hindu temples and what practices we have been following. At no point in time we are saying that discrimination is to be allowed. Nobody should be discriminated. Entry for temples should be allowed for everybody. Whereas Siddaramaiah or Congress doesn't have the guts to talk about any other religion which has got, apparently, even though certain practices are not essential to their faith, when they want to fight on those issues, these Congress people would come out on the streets protesting, saying that freedom of people is being taken away. This is the sinister ploy by Congress and its allies to defame Hindus and Hinduism.
So, Professor Gowda, you know, every religion has some ritual or the other. Even in Islam and Christianity, when you enter their holy places of worship, you have to remove shoes, right? It's considered, no one calls that discriminatory, or no one calls that, you know, going against essential religious practices or whatever. Point is that every religion has those customs. But how come no one says that in Islam or in Christianity it's insulting, but somehow in Hinduism it is insulting because you're asked to remove your shirt and go into certain temples and wear what is essentially unthreaded cloth?
Because this has become a fashion for Congress and
its allies. Let Professor Gowda respond,
Removing shoes does not let you tell one believer from the other. In this case, the sacred thread becomes visible and the priest can tell who is a Brahmin and who is not. And for some people,
now we are talking about from Hinduism have come to Brahminism.
Excuse me.
Let him speak.
So which is why, Zaka, for many decades, the shirt removal practice has been a source of discussion. And the temples have continued to do it. No one has asked for it to be stopped, but it's been criticized on and off, but the practice goes on.
No, but sir, that also, by implication, you are saying that every pujari, every priest discriminates against non-Brahmins.
There is potential for that. And in fact, many of these temples have separate eating lines. Brahmins eat separately than the non-Brahmins. It's established practice. Again, something that's been criticized, but it's not being stopped.
Potential for committing a crime. Every car that way is a potential murder weapon.
No, Zaka, what I mean is,
there are communities where men and women sit separately during wedding ceremony. What do you call that then?
Yeah, exactly.
There are certain communities where men and women don't sit separately even during weddings.
Even in Islam and Christianity, there are separate places where women are allowed, and there are separate places where men are allowed. That can also be construed as discriminatory, Professor Gowda.
Zaka, one thing at a time. I mean, nobody is saying other religions are free of discrimination. We're just talking of this one example Siddaramaiah spoke of, and you're saying why it has been commented upon for decades. Siddaramaiah is not the first to point it out. I've heard this since I was a young boy. You know, if you go to a temple, it's uncomfortable. Men are asked to take off their shirts. Most people do it. It's not an issue, but it has been talked about as something that is better.
But GS Prashant, you know, politically, whether you look at all the reactions that have come, particularly from South India, to what Udhyanidhi Stalin said, they are all positing this as the ills and evils of the caste system. And there, the BJP, you know, or any political party, cannot be seen as defending the caste discrimination, right?
Zaka,
but the BJP does not get into the caste question.
We are not supporting discrimination by caste at all. Because our government stands for Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwa, Sabka Prayas. So therefore, we are not discriminating. If you look at any of the centrally sponsored schemes, most of the beneficiaries are from minority communities. So therefore, there is no discrimination here. This now is only a sinister ploy by the Ghamandiya Gathbandhan only to incite the feelings of Hindus and Hinduism. This is what Rahul Gandhi is doing. We should ask Rahul Gandhi openly. He is talking about Mohabbat ki dukan. He is now opening Nafrat ki shopping mall. He should answer that. Because he is now brought about all these 65 people together in a photograph to say they're standing together, India Alliance. What are they standing for? They are wanting to get votes of Hindus, but they bash Hindus day in, day out. Is it become the day job to bash Hindus? And Hindus have been tolerant for centuries.
So, Professor Chandan Gowda,
one thing could not be wiped out is Sanatan Dharma.
You know, you cannot blame the BJP in an election year if they are going to put 2 and 2 together. So, an Udhyanidhi Stalin saying something, a Siddaramaiah saying something else, Parmeshwara saying a third thing, will all be conflated because for the BJP it's one against all. That is the fight for 2024. So, anyone in that all is making a comment that is seen as anti-Hindu, they will latch on to it.
Yes, Zaka, you are absolutely right. It's being seen as an opportunity to build an issue, but we on this discussion are trying to be intelligent about how we understand these things separately. They're not to be clubbed at all. What Udhayanidhi Stalin said was something extremely different than what Parmeshwar said, than what Siddaramaiah said. There are three different points of view. They happen to be made in the space
you
of
accept
but we cannot see it as a
Stalin's
conspiracy.
view?
Zaka, very quickly, the co-panelist, I was not accusing the government of discriminating. I'm only saying temples discriminate. They make Brahmin visitors sit separately. They feed them separately.
No, but Professor Gowda, you know, if we are dealing
but
with
it's a private practice.
No. If you are talking about discrimination, you have to be equanimous about it because there is discrimination in other religions also. None of these opposition leaders, by the way, none of these opposition leaders, Udhyanidhi Stalin or Siddaramaiah or Parmeshwara, are talking or even referring to discrimination in other religions. It's almost always discrimination in Hinduism.
Yes, Zaka, I think that's a fair observation. But my response to that is they're all speaking as Hindus, as being part of the same community. They've experienced it firsthand, and they can talk about it with a certain confidence and authority that they can't speak of with respect to other religions because they're not experienced them.
Okay.
But it's an observation to make. Like I think
are you saying that Mr. Owaisi will now come and accept on public domain that there is discrimination there? You will never hear any other religious person from another religion or community talking ill of their own religion. It only happens with this Indie Alliance who wants to defame Hindus for their political survival.
I got to wrap up. Thank you very much, GS Prashant, Chandan Gowda, for joining us. Let's see how this narrative plays out in the run-up to 2024. Clearly, the BJP is lashing on to any comment made by any leader of the India Alliance and using that to portray the India Alliance as anti-Hindu in its makeup, anti-Hindu in its outlook, and anti-Hindu in its statements. But whether or not that has resonance on the ground and whether or not the Hindu majority population, the Hindu majority electorate is offended by that in a way as to, be negatively shaped, their views on the India alliance to be negatively shaped, to vote against the India alliance. That is something we have to wait and see. But as we wrap up this edition of Brass Tacks, we have ground reports. We've got 48 hours to go for the all-important G20 summit. Delhi is getting decked up almost like a new bride-to-be. From the airport to G20 corridors to hotels where the delegates will be staying. CNN News 18 ground reporters are out there on the field getting you these ground reports on how the national capital is getting all set for what is easily the biggest global summit that this country has hosted. Thank you for tuning in.
Full sanitization exercise being carried out outside Hotel Shangri-La and Lee Meridian, the two hotels where delegates are expected to be staying. Every flower pot you see there, the security personnel checking if there's anything hidden in the flower pot. There is a canine squad also, the canines on duty from Delhi Police, from CRPF and from NSG. They have spread out all across the city, sniffing every nook and corner. There are others also from the security grid carrying out metal detector like tests, and they are from the BSF. This particular contingent is from the BSF, but there are Delhi Police personnel as well. And exactly what are they doing? Because this is a high security zone, they want to ensure that nothing is left to chance. So every nook and cranny of this entire area in the New Delhi zone is being thoroughly checked. On the other side, I'll just walk about and show you how Sashastra Seema Bal and the other paramilitary forces have also parked themselves. There's a Delhi Police vehicle and there's an SSB vehicle also, and there are more personnel carrying out checks. People who are staying, who are booked at these hotels, they're also being thoroughly checked and frisked before being sent in. So those are the vehicles I was telling you about. They have paramilitary personnel. These roads near the hotels which lead towards the Parliament building, towards North Block and South Block, common public is not allowed. Police barricades have been set up. So nobody is allowed to go beyond that point. Even the normal roundabouts are being thoroughly checked by the security personnel.
It's India's G20 presidency year.
The global south will shine.
The test of its multipolarity rhetoric.
Countdown to the big ticket event. Complete transformation for Delhi.
Unprecedented capital security.
Delhi becomes the world's diplomatic hub.
A 4-day lockdown and watertight security.
Quick response teams in place. World embraces India's youth.
As top world leaders come calling.
Vishwamitra leads global agenda.
Coverage like no others. Only on CNN News 18.
Goods, and how India has taken this great success across sectors, and this line especially, I would also say it must be specially noted that women are emerging as the driving force of our growth journey. PM crediting the women leadership of this country on how it has propelled the growth journey of India, and this is something that he says that every sector that is on an upswing is seeing women take the lead. Very, very important interview by the Prime Minister to Moneycontrol, his first digital interview, speaking on a range of topics, I think sets the tone for the upcoming G20 Leaders Summit this week and the battle of 2024. When it comes to the global south, these are the countries with which we empathize. So as said Prime Minister in an exclusive interview with Moneycontrol today, speaking on in a great detail on the global south. He said that since we too are part of the developing world, we understand the aspirations of the global south countries. At every forum, the PM said, including the G20, India has been raising the concerns of the countries of the global south. To quote the PM, as soon as we became the president of the G20, we held the Voice of Global South Summit, which made it clear that we were a voice for the inclusion of those who felt excluded from the global discourse and institutional priorities. The PM also said how he has given importance to his ties, the country's ties with Africa over the years. Even at the G20, India has given momentum to the idea of the inclusion of the African Union into the G20. When the European Union can be a part of the G20, why not the African Union? The PM also said that we are a nation that looks at the world as one family. Our G20 motto of India itself says that in any family, every member's voice matters, and this is also India's idea for the world too. In G20, there is always also a scope for improvement, such as greater involvement of the global south and a bigger role for Africa, the Prime Minister said. These are also the areas that India is working on during its G20 presidency, the Prime Minister has told Moneycontrol. The PM in fact went on to say that it would also be a good idea to seek the views of the nations outside the G20, especially from the global south, when the G20 reaches the milestone of 25 years. The PM said such inputs would be very valuable to chart the future course for the next 25 years. India's G20 presidency in 2023 has also placed a great emphasis on addressing the global challenges posed by the debt crisis in low-income and middle-income countries. The PM said we have been diligently advocating for the interests of the global south in this crisis. India's growth, the Prime Minister said, is not only good for Indians but also for the world. India's growth is clean and green growth. India's growth is being achieved with the human-centric approach that the PM said can be replicated in other countries too. He said India's growth in fact helps further the interests of the global south. In an earlier interview with the French newspaper ahead of his visit to France earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had also said that the rights of the global south have long been denied, and this has led to a feeling of anguish among these countries, while he underlined India's role as a bridge between them and the Western world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given a big interview to Moneycontrol, a very, very detailed interview, his first big digital interview before the G20 summit. What does the Prime Minister say? I would basically split it into 5 parts. The Prime Minister, obviously the big headline from the interview is that India's growth is good for the world. PM playing a very, very strong case for India's growth trajectory, how India will become the 3rd largest economy in the world, the roadmap towards the same, but also stressing that India's growth is not just good for Indians, it is also good for the world. India matters on the global stage, and also the Prime Minister speaking in a big way about the India's role in a world which is driven by geopolitical uncertainties because of the Russia-Ukraine war, the need for global credible institutions like the WTO, like the United Nations, and the dangers from financially irresponsible policies like the freebies which are being offered by political parties in India. The Prime Minister interview basically split, I think, major 5 issues. India and the G20, how India's G20 presidency has been one which has been truly democratic, events held in over 60 cities, over 220 events. The G20 event was taken out of the traditional like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and taken even to tier 2 cities, even in fact every state capital to UTs, and how it became truly a symbol of India's diversity. PM also speaking about the global south, how India has become the shoulder for the global south and how India has become the voice on the global stage for the global south. In fact, India has been stressing in a big way for the inclusion of the African Union also into the G20. When the European Union can be there, why can't the African Union also be there? And PM laying a strong case for the developing nations of the African Union and other developing nations of global south to find a space and a voice in the G20 structure. PM also speaking a lot about the digital public infrastructure of India, how India has achieved new records in digital public infrastructure. Just now we saw last month how UPI has reached a global high, a historic high of nearly 10 billion UPI.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Counting down to the G20 summit, Prime Minister Modi has just left for Indonesia. He's attending the ASEAN, India and East Asia summits, and this will be one of his shortest foreign visits. He'll spend barely 9 hours in Jakarta and hopes to be back in time to welcome US President Joe Biden in New Delhi. In fact, leaders have already started arriving for the G20 summit, but most headlines focus on the one who's not coming. What is stopping Xi Jinping? A new report talks about some interesting and significant developments. Apparently, the Chinese president was pulled up by Communist Party elders. They're not happy with the direction that China is taking. We'll tell you more about it and Xi Jinping's response. Meanwhile, the Pakistan Prime Minister says the Taliban is using American weapons to attack them. In India, there's a lot of buzz over ticket sales for the Cricket World Cup. In Africa, a major clash leaves 53 troops dead in Burkina Faso. Is Dubai on course to becoming the next Las Vegas? How did a weight loss drug maker become Europe's most valuable company, bigger than luxury giant LVMH? And a new study on why more and more people under the age of 50 are dying of cancer. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. The United States warns North Korea. Washington says Pyongyang will pay a price if it supplies arms to Russia. Reports say Kim Jong-un will travel to meet Vladimir Putin later this month. Sanctions hit Russia wants to secure more military supplies amid